Hello, everybody. Thank you once again for listening to our podcast here in Quetzal Talk. And today, we have a little bit of a different podcast going on because we have Mr. Ed Diaz on the line here. What's up, Mr. Diaz?
Hey, how are you? So happy to be here.
Thank you, thank you. Like I said, man, thanks for being here with Quetzal Talk, giving us a little bit of your time. I know you're a busy man, and like I said, we do appreciate it. I'm a big fan of you, man. I've been watching all your instructional videos and your reviews and all that with Roland. And I recently bought the System 8, man, because I want to go ahead and make my own intros for the podcast or whatnot. But I'm totally new to it, right? So I'm like, hey, what if we could get Mr. Diaz? Because I'm a big fan of him, and help us a little bit about the System 8. Are you from? You've done some tutorials with the System 8, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have to look up real quick. I do so many tutorials that I forget sometimes, what tutorials I've done. And
Right.
so just looking up the tutorials, if you go to YouTube, look up Roland Product Support, and if you hit playlist in there, I've already separated a lot of our products by what they are, and so you can just click on that one, and it takes you to the playlist of all that. And on the System 8, I did 14 videos, yeah, 14
Right.
on that guy. So yeah, so it's
Yeah,
pretty
man,
cool.
I watched a lot of them, and there's still some things that I can't figure out because I'm totally new to this whole synthesis, man. Like 5 years ago, I got a Roland D50 because I wanted to have the
Mhm.
sounds of the Mexican grupos sounds, from the '90s,
Yeah,
and
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and the D50 goes good with that. So I bought it, and since then, man, I've been like trying to learn more about this synthesis stuff. But before, man, can we get to know you a little bit more, man? Can we go ahead and
Sure.
ask you questions about you? So, can you go ahead and let us know a little bit about you and what you do with Roland?
Well, my job with Roland, I'm my title is a senior product specialist for the synth division. I
Hmm.
think that's what it is. I always forget all these titles, but I'm technically a senior product specialist for the synth
Hmm.
division. And so what that entails, it's a lot of different things. So one, it could be like helping customers, be it in person or online, in stores, if that happens. It could be also creating video content, which I've kind of morphed myself into over the years because I enjoy doing the videos and I can share with more people across the world that way rather than in person.
Hmm.
Although I do enjoy back when before the pandemic, I did enjoy like I'd be working in my studio and then I would go on certain trips. Some I have to, but some were just like I want to go on this trip so I can talk to people face to face, and it would always spark me for more content.
Right.
What do people want to see, or what do I notice in my travels all over the country, all over the U.S. And so I do that. I also do sound design. So some of the keyboards have my sounds in them,
Oh, wow, for real?
and so, yeah, for real. And so, and then I'll do sound design for different stores. So like if a store sells a particular keyboard, like right now I'm working on a sound set for Phantoms
Right.
for a store, and so when they buy the Phantom, they'll get these extra sounds. So work on that. Also, I help the touring musicians, a lot of the big time touring musicians. I'll work with the keyboardists a
Right.
lot of times, and we talk about what keyboards I'll recommend. I'll recommend to them what keyboards I think they need for the tour to try and emulate the sound, and then I'll talk to them about how to hook up the keyboards, how to set them up in such a way so that way MIDI wise they can go ahead and press one button on the master keyboard and it'll switch the entire rig for
Right.
them. And so I'll usually create a schematic for them which shows them exactly how to hook it up. And I always tell them the first time you do it is the hardest, but after you do it, it's just mind blowing. And I share this a lot with the local gigging musicians and stuff like that. So I'm always in my iPad where I keep all my notes. I have a list of different ways to configure keyboards and different ways to map them and schematics and stuff that I'll share with him. So yeah, and then also my job with Roland is put out little fires that come up. Someone's having a Ed, take care of it. I say, all right, I got it. So
Hell yeah.
and then also video training within the last couple of years has become more prevalent as well. So
Hmm.
which when I do a video training, I can do it on Skype, FaceTime, whatever, and it looks just like in the video. The videos that I produce, but it's in person. Well, virtually in person, I
Right,
should
right.
say. So
Hmm.
yeah, so I enjoy that because I can get that interaction from the users, from the synthesizer users, which I love that. I just think that's fun, and yeah, that's what I do. So
Damn.
I'm all over the place, and we
That's.
created a show earlier last year, I guess,
Hmm.
called Synth Talk, which is pretty much me, my partner and I, Scott Berry. We just get on there and we talk
Hmm.
synthesizers, and it's for Roland, but it's not necessary. It's a Roland centric show, but it's not all about. It's just about just trying to spread a good message. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Hmm.
That's what it's about. And so Roland
Wow.
liked that idea, and so we just kind of have fun. So basically, I think ultimately my job. And ultimately, my job is to sell keyboards, right? But
Right.
in talking about it as well, if I can help people have a better life through music, or accomplish some of their dreams or their goals, or just forget the bad that's going on in their life, and they can just have fun making music, then I'm doing my job. Ultimately, that's how I feel. I just feel like I'm a teacher, so
Right.
I love it. It's not even a real job sometimes,
Hmm.
unless I'm doing expenses and stuff like office work,
Right.
but but uh, but it's like yeah, I'm like I said, I'm currently working on a new sound set
Hmm.
that'll be shared, and it gives me great pleasure that will be used probably in I'm doing a church sound set, so in churches or different live situation, it makes me
Right.
feel good. It's like I'm out there playing, so it's
Right.
kind of neat.
That's pretty
Yeah.
neat, man. Yes. I'm pretty sure your job is pretty badass, bro. And let me ask you something, man. When was it, or how did you start getting into synthesizers? Did you start playing just regular piano when you were young, and later on caught on to synthesis, or did you start off right away with synthesizers?
I actually started off on the alto saxophone. My
Mm-hmm.
father, my father is a musician also, and so there's that. And so I grew up in Houston, Texas,
Right.
and I would go with my father to a lot of back in those days the Tejano and the Chicano kind. I think it was more Chicano music back
Right.
then. So you had a lot more of the horn, the Mexican music. Well, the Tex-Mex music back then in the late to middle 70s and mid 80s, was more a lot of synthesizers, still a lot of brass.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Uh, there was a lot of kind of jazz influence in some of the cool stuff they were doing. And like you mentioned earlier, the keyboards such as the D50 were just like big staples of
Right.
that music. So
Mm-hmm.
I grew up playing that stuff. And my dad brought home, and he's a sax player,
Mm-hmm.
he brought home a Roland JX3P, and first
Right.
thing with MIDI, had a little one-track sequencer on it, and I wasn't really allowed to touch it, but yeah, you're a kid, like I'm gonna touch it, and
You're right.
so because dads work and you get home you before they do, back in the day, so I
Mm-hmm.
would touch it and put it back to where it was, and then by the time I got busted, because dads always come home early, and there's always that day they come home early for whatever reason,
Right.
and you get busted. But I knew enough where my dad's like, well, you better be careful, then so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. So I just started off playing that a JX3P, which I have the original one that I had right now. It was damaged in a flood, one of the Houston floods, but
Oh,
I have it in
damn.
the yeah. Well, I got it. I cleaned it up. I'm cleaning it up right now, and it's gonna be hanging in my music room because even destroyed, because all the circuits, because of all the stuff with the water. Uh, if I hang it in my music room, it's still when people come in, which no one's allowed right now. But when
Right.
people come in, it just elicits a response. People want to tell me their keyboard story or their thing. So I think of it almost as like art now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of cool that way. Yeah. So and then I just continued playing music all through high school. I joined my dad's. I started playing professionally when I was 13,
Mm-hmm.
13 in the Chicano stuff. So playing a lot of trumpet and cornet, and then eventually some keys in there too, playing all
Right.
the uh, accordion kind of keyboard accordion stuff, which I can still do today. It's
Yeah.
kind of a throwback, and just kind of kept on going through college. But mainly my main instrument is trumpet. It was trumpet a
That's
lot,
crazy.
and then I could still pull out the trumpet. If I
Hmm.
need to, just give me a couple of days to kind of get my chops up, and I can still play. So
Right.
but trumpet doesn't pay the bills like it used to. Yeah, trumpet used to just really pay the bills, and then of course keyboards paid the bills, and so yeah, it's
You
yeah.
jumped
So
onto that.
yeah. Well, I literally just love keyboards. It's good times. And as a kid, they used to have the catalogs of the Roland gear, where at that time it was the catalog that had the JX3P, the Juno 106, the
Hmm.
Jupiter 8, Jupiter 6. They were all in the SH 101. They were all like in the same catalog. So this was
Right.
probably around 86, 80, mid 80s. And I used to carry that little book around with me in the house. And I used to just, like a little kid, where you just look at it and you're like, wow. And then I'd read the specs and stuff. And I didn't understand a lot of the stuff that I was reading. All I knew is that these are really cool. These are really cool,
Yeah.
and I'd never seen anything like that,
Hmm.
and so it just kind of that's where it comes from. But I always loved Roland, and that was always like my unattainable dream was to work for Roland,
Right.
and oops, it happened, and then and
That's
then
badass.
yeah, it's been a crazy ride. I've gotten to go all over the country of different parts of the world and stuff, and
Hmm.
and yeah, I'm very blessed, very lucky to do that. But it's an awesome gig, but it is a lot of work. And I'm not complaining. I've done a bunch of manual labor growing up and in college. Cleaned out the bayous in Houston and did roofing in
Right.
Houston in the summers, which and a shout out to my roofers out there in the Texas heat.
Hell yeah.
Jeez, heck, heck yeah, man. So I kind of come from that, so I get it, I understand, but it for me the gig it's hard when you're on the road and like you're by yourself and you eat by yourself and you got to travel, you can't be late, you can't miss a flight, so
Hmm.
there's a lot of other things to it that and it's I'm not saying it's hard, but it can be hard on you,
Right.
internally, like, oh man. So maybe that's why I do the videos, and maybe that's why I like the live stuff. So I don't
Nah.
feel like I'm alone.
Right.
But uh,
So
but it does. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah,
no, no, I'm
I
sorry.
could
Go
just
ahead.
ramble. I just love talking about this stuff. It's just fun.
Well, hell yeah, man. I like hearing it. That's why I like listening to your videos. But
Hmm.
also wanted to ask you though, if anyone, out there young, right, in high school or whatever, wanted to like get a job like you because they see your videos as well, and they're like, damn, I wish I could do that when I get older or whatever. What would you
Hmm.
recommend them to do or to start doing right now? So when they get a little older, they could possibly also get some type of job title like you.
Oh well, it's a lot of it. I could always say, hey, be good in school, and a lot of kids don't believe it's like no, just be legit in school. I used to teach martial arts
Oh
years ago,
shit.
and so at a young age, and so that taught me how to speak publicly.
Mhm.
So uh, so I would tell you have to be able to speak publicly. You have to be able to organize your words and not be shy, because there's sometimes where I'm talking to a small audience, and there's sometimes where I'm talking to an entire auditorium full of people.
Right.
So that's one thing. You got to work on your speaking skills, and that's just something you do beforehand. And
Mhm.
so join some kind of organization so you can get your public speaking on. Also, of course, do your study in the synthesizers. Do your study. Be a good musician. You
Mhm.
don't have to be a killer musician, but definitely do your homework. Definitely do your homework on synthesizers if that's what you want to get into.
Right.
I do Roland stuff, but you can put me in front of any synthesizer and
Mhm.
give me a minute, and I'm like, all right, I'm good to go.
Right.
so yeah, do that. Be open to all kinds of music. So all kinds. So like I just mentioned, I grew up in the Chicano Tejano kind of thing here in Texas,
Mhm.
but I love music of India. I love jazz. I love funk. I like salsa. I like blues. I like all polka. Of course, being my family's from the valley and from the Rio Grande Valley. Of
Hmm.
course, there's a special place in my heart for the old conjunto music,
Right,
and
right.
music of Trio Los Panchos and stuff like that. There's certain
Right.
so I'm musically I'm all over the place, and so that's why I tell kids, do good in school because if you can do good, just do good. And I wasn't the greatest student, because I started gigging at 13, so I was more interested in gigging than school.
Right.
But but do good in school. Plan your work your plan. Just think about what you want to do. And then also, I was just talking to some buddies last night that are also in the synthesizer game, other manufacturers,
Right.
guys that people think you guys are enemies. I'm like, no, that's my bro. So we were all talking on the phone, and well, we were doing like a group chat, like a bunch of little girls, like 13-year-old girls from back in the day.
Right.
But because we none of us have seen each other, and like at NAM, that's for me and a lot of the other my colleagues. NAM is kind of like a bro fest. Like, hey man, how you been? And all this. It's good to see each other, and we're not
Mhm.
going to do it this year. But we all say, no matter what, be a good person. Like, be a good dudette. Be a good person. Don't be, uh, you know, don't be a dick. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
for sure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know how else to say it. Just but people understand that word is like, don't be like that, because in our industry you can be a killer and know your stuff, but if you're not a nice, like a cool person, a nice person, like legitimately just be nice. Even
Mhm.
when you're tired, be nice, and don't burn any bridges, because there's the bridges are small here. You got to be be good,
Right,
just be
yeah.
good, and that goes a long way. It's just, yeah, I would just tell the kids, be good in school, take some kind of class where you can learn how to speak. Uh, be humble, realize that you don't know everything.
Mhm.
I learned stuff from people that are brand new to synthesizers, because their brain is just like, it's new, so they'll say something that I didn't think of it in that way, or I forgot. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And
Right.
then uh yeah, so yeah, just learn how to speak, be cool, really do your homework, be open to ideas, be open to music. Don't be like, I only do blah blah blah. Like, nah, dude, got to
Right.
be open, because in my job, like right now, I have to do all these sounds for a church, like a modern church kind of thing. So I got to think in that
Mhm.
way. So um, and that's not necessarily my preferred music, so it's like, okay, but then I might have to do some hip hop oriented stuff. So like, okay, or here in New Braunfels where I live, I might have to do some. I get tracks and I'm like, hey Ed, we need some country type of tracks with this kind of vibe, and I'm like, okay, so
Mhm.
yeah, you just got to be open, be open. It,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead. It's cool. Yeah, just be open to stuff.
I was just gonna say that, man. That sounds like perfect advice, man. That it really is true that you have to humble down, and almost that goes, I think, in any situation, right? That you have to
Absolutely.
humble down and just be nice, like you said. Don't be a dick, I guess, like how you said it, and it's pretty good advice. Now, also, Mr. Diaz, I wanted to go ahead and ask you a question about the System 8.
Yeah, of course.
There's like I said, this is really hard for me. Like this whole synthesis, I'm trying to learn it, and I thought it was easier than what it really is. But it's pretty hard. But on top of on the System 8, I think I don't know where the filter is. One of the
Hmm.
filter on the top right, there's a button that says, or a knob that says key. Do you know what that is for?
Okay, hold on. I'm bringing up. I currently don't have a System 8 real quick, so I'm just bringing one up in front of me
Oh, okay,
on
okay,
my
okay.
on my screen, because I'm pretty visual. So it's
Right.
like, all right, on the top right, let's see, where are you saying?
Yeah, on the very top, there's like a knob that says key, where around I think the filter is.
Okay, filter. Okay. Oh, that's probably, and I'm trying to find it. That's probably a key. Let's see. How much of the key you want it the key to trigger it. I think that's what it is on there. on that
Well,
one.
because there's a
So
key trigger on the bottom though. There's a
yeah,
key
I'm just trying
trigger,
to see.
and then there's a key trigger for the filter, but on the side of that, it just
Yeah,
says
I see it.
key.
On that one, because we have, the cutoff, how much we cut off the frequency, and then the resonance. So where do we want that frequency to resonate within the cutoff? And then envelope, how do we want it to evolve over time? The envelope,
Mm-hmm.
and then the key would be, oh, that's key off. So when do you want it to let go of the filter? So like so we when we sometimes you see like a key on or a key off.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is when you press down on the key, that's a key on. But when you let off the key, that's a key off.
Right.
It's key off. So it's probably saying right there, and I have to look it up in the manual because I haven't talked about System 8 in a minute.
Right.
But it's probably like when you let off the key, how long is the filter immediately going to cut off, or is it going to hang over a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
from the key stuff? And on some of this stuff, depending how we're programming, it can get very subtle changes sometimes, very subtle changes, And then also under that filter section, it really changes depending on your ADSR, your attack, decay, sustain, release of the
Mm-hmm.
filter.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that stuff it's that mix of information really kind of works together and stuff right there. Um,
Also with that ADSR that you brought it up, why is there two of them? How does that work?
okay, well that's cool, good idea. Good. So ADSR, as we just mentioned, is the attack, decay, sustain, release. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we have two of them, one in the filter, one in the amplifier, which is the volume basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it is, let's talk about what they are first. Attack is that how when we do whatever we're doing, be it a filter or an amp, how soon does it attack? Does it start?
Mm-hmm.
Do we want it to do a slow attack? Do we want it to really like kicking fast? Cool. So I always think of it like a punch. Like boom. Do we want it to punch in there? Do we want a fast attack, or we want it like a slow, like blow into
Mm-hmm.
there?
Okay.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. So that's what the attack does. Now the decay is like, okay, after that initial attack, do we want it to like really like pull out, die down quick, whoo, die down quick, or do we want it to like uh hit and then slowly, like in slow motion, slowly decay, slowly
Mm-hmm.
decay. And then the sustain is like, okay, after the initial attack and then the decay, where do we want that decay to kind of stop? Do we already want it to sustain, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the release, the R release is like, okay, after we let off the keys and stuff, how do we want that? Because sometimes when we're messing with the keys, the filters, as soon as you let off the keys, if you have a quick release, it'll go, it'll like
Shut
real
off
quick,
quick. Mm-hmm.
or if you do it on a long release, it'll go,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be like a slow kind of
Right.
thing. So there's two there because in there we're telling the filter, hey filter, here's how I want you to react, here's how I want your cutoff, and how I want you to envelope over time.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how I want you to do it, because depending on how much you have it envelope, and you can see you can have it envelope going down and coming up, or going up and coming back down. So
Right.
okay, choose that, and then you're like, well, how fast? How do I want you to evolve ultimately over time? Attack, decay, sustain, and release. How do I want to shape you? Because these are shaping tools.
Mm-hmm.
And then the same thing on the amp. On the amp side, same thing: attack, decay, sustain, release. Uh, an example I always use is I'll use a supersaw.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll use a supersaw, just a supersaw oscillator. If I do an attack that's a slow attack,
Right.
I can make that supersaw sound like a string. If I do a slow attack, it just
Mm-hmm.
comes in slow, and then the decay and the sustain and the release, I put it on a slow release. So even when I let go of it, it you can hear it kind of it's like a string. So even though I let go of the keys, I can let them hang over a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then if I have it a quick attack, and you got to go. I can make it a blip, or I can make it more like a brass sound. I could say, all right, let's go ahead and put the attack maybe about halfway, decay, maybe, maybe have the match sustain. I can let it sustain through, and then the release, I'll do a quick release off, you
Right.
know, and I can make it sound like synth. And this is all with the same oscillator waveform, be it, let's say, a saw.
Hmm.
So, so that's doing that. So you're saying amplifier, how it reacts in the keys. I want you to play one way, but while you're doing that, I have this filter shaped this other way, shaped
Right.
this other way. So it's really kind of neat how they all put together. And bringing up the D50. If you look at the D50 itself has so many parameters that are still being used to this day. The D50, because myself and my partner, we'll have just big nerd things. I called him up one day and we were just doing a video chat and looking at the
Hmm.
D50 stuff,
Hmm.
and we were just talking about all the editing and how the D50 gives you all of so many editing parameters that are used by Roland and other keyboard manufacturers to this day.
Hmm.
It's like the DNA is in there.
Right.
So so I think that's what it is on the and I'm sorry, I'm just the System 8. Yeah, the System 8 is so much fun because you can get up to three oscillators. You got the LFO, but you got the mixer of the oscillators and the pitch and all that. But and then also those two envelopes right there, so you can tell this is how I want you to react,
Right.
in there. So there's a lot. It's the System 8 is just fun because you can start one way, and then you could just immediately go all over the place. Because I think if I remember correctly, uh, I have a video where it's on the System 8 on the Roland Product Support channel where I think I called them like CSI, like a crime scene investigation.
Hmm.
Where I see, I think I have them in here. I'm just looking real quick. Yeah, I would just take a sound. Yeah, it's called editing presets. I take a sound and we just kind of like messed with it. Like, well, what does this do? What does that do? And you kind of investigate that sound and kind of learn what these things do.
Right.
So that's one thing about the System 8 that's so much fun is because pretty much everything that you want to do synth editing wise is on top. It's on
Yeah.
top of the keyboard, ready to go.
And
So
I would say it's even fun to people that don't even know synthesis. I mean, you just put a little sound that you kind of like and just start moving knobs here and there. And I mean, you could come up with some pretty nice sounds just messing around with
oh,
it, you know?
absolutely. Like, um, so System 8, even if you're new, it can look like, oh, I don't know what all these knobs do. And I was guilty of this too back in the day. But I'll tell you this quick story. So back, I think it was in 2007. I think I was in Japan at Roland Japan, and
Nice.
at that time we were working on the V-Synth GT and the SH 201 synthesizer. Okay, they
Hmm.
had just come out, and we were working with some of the head synth guys in Japan, and I had some of the other synth guys from, of course, my bros from Australia and from England and from Italy and from Taiwan and China and all the all over the place, all over the world, group of us.
Right.
And we went into this room, and they had the SH201, and one of the head synth guys, one of the head Roland synth guys, he's like, okay, great, everybody here, program a synth bass. And we're like, cool, no problem. From a synthesizer, program a synth bass from scratch. All right,
Hmm.
great. And here's the thing. We're like, I can't hear the keyboard. They had the speakers turned off, and like I can't hear the keyboard. And he said, you shouldn't have to hear the keyboard. You should just know. You
Oh,
know?
right.
Yeah. So we were just like, oh crap, because you know what you to do, you think, right, but when they took away the hearing part and you didn't know the recipe, like, oh,
Hmm.
it was just like, and so you had to go in there without hearing it, program a bass from scratch, and then they would flip on the audio so you could hear. And so all of us were just like, and then so we're like, okay, okay, okay. And then he turned the audio back up and said, okay, now program a brass sound. Oh
Hmm.
man. So for me, that experience really taught me, all right, we have to learn what the basics of synthesis are. And so And on the System 8 and the Gaia and the SH201 and a lot of the synthesizers, it's laid out pretty cool. So on if you're new to synthesizers and you get a System 8,
Mm-hmm.
don't be afraid. If you just look, synthesizers basics is just oscillator, which makes the noise. That's the waveform.
Right.
Okay, the filter. The way I pitch it like this: say you make the noise, your voice, you're the oscillator. The filter, and I think old school, old school Mexican. I don't know. I'm like, it's think back in the day, showing my age, when you used to go outside and you drink water out of the water hose, and you put your thumb over the water hose to kind of adjust the stream, right? So
Right.
you're shaping the sound,
Mm-hmm.
you're shaping it, and so that's what you do. An oscillator and the filter. The filter shapes the sound,
Can I
and then
cut you off right quick right there, man? I'm sorry.
yeah,
The
yeah,
filters. Talking about the filters, man, that gets so confusing because they're everywhere, right? Like, I go into I think the LFO that has a filter, and then I might go
yes.
into an oscillator that has a filter, and then there's a whole section of that's a whole filter in itself, and then you go to the amp or whatever, it has a filter or whatever, and that's just what confuses me. Like, what the hell is a filter then? If
Okay. Cool. All right, cool. So let's break it down. Okay, remember oscillator, that's what makes the noise.
mm-hmm.
I say noise, you can say waveform, however you want to spin it.
Right.
It's just that's what generates the noise, the sound. So and then the filter, the main filter, that's what shapes it. Now the amp is how loud the sound is and or how it reacts in the key bed. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's that. Okay, those are the three major parts of synthesis. Now the fourth is the low frequency oscillator. Now the low frequency oscillator, LFO, that's think of it this way. The LFO is kind of like a vibrato. Like so when you sing in your voice, if you hold out the tone that you make, at the end you'll go ah, you start shaking your voice.
Right.
So that's your natural LFO, your low frequency oscillator. Now the cool thing about an oscillator on the synthesizer, how I was shaking it right now, that was kind of like shaking a little bit of didn't shake the pitch, maybe a little bit of the pitch, but you can change, have the LFO do a pitch, or you could filter. So it's like, think of it when you do LFO filter and you turn that on. That's like someone reaching over to the filter for you and the main filter section,
Mm-hmm.
and moving that cutoff switch back and forth like in real time. The LFO
Mm-hmm.
the LFO is kind of like your little homie on the side that's going. You tell him, hey, I want you to spin that cutoff in the filter for me. So that's what that's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the same thing with the amp. Amp is like, hey, I want you to turn on and off the volume or the amplifier, inside, get like the level in the amp section.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to do that for me, my low frequency oscillator. So it's like it's having it. And then also, and so the rate is like, hey, how fast are you turning that filter knob for me?
Right.
How the rate is how fast that pitch is going, up and down, how fast, so it's pretty cool. And then of course in the LFOs you got the shapes. So it's like telling it how that particular LFO is shaped. And you don't have to use LFO at all really. And the
Hmm.
fade time is like, when do I want the LFO to kick in? Do I want the LFO to kick in immediately, like immediately, or do I want it to come in after a set amount of seconds so I can go and then once it kicks in, then it goes
Right.
you
Mm-hmm.
can so look at it that way. So I always say just break it down slow. Let's just start off with a basic oscillator, just one, and then you go over to the filters, and we have the pitch envelope there too, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to go there yet. But and then we go into the regular filter and shape that sound how you want it to uh, evolve over
Right.
time. And then the same thing in the amp. How do I want it to be triggered from the keys, like a fast attack, release, slow release? How do I want it to go? How loud do I want it? How much velocity sensitivity do I want in the keys? Do I want this to be like an old school synth before there was touch sensitivity in the keys? Which velocity sensitivity, for everybody out there that's new, that's back in the old days. The keyboards they just sounded when you press the keys at the same volume. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it was I think it was the 80s. I don't think the 70s, but I could be wrong. Uh, it started to react on your touch, so we
Right.
can, if I play soft, it's soft. If I play loud, so we can adjust that in the System 8. So if we wanted to have more of an analog kind of vibe, maybe I turn that velocity sensitivity off. I turn it all the
Right.
way to the left, so it's kind of like old school synth. Yeah. And then the LFO is like, hey, think of it, and I say think of it as vibrato, but it can be more. But yeah, you can tell it exactly what to do.
Right.
It's yeah, and
And
then you start taking some of that stuff. You're like, oh, and it's in baby steps, just like just take it apart and just
right.
kind of have fun with it.
And
Yeah,
also,
I wish I had the System 8 here to kind of like make some noise for you.
well, I have it here, but we couldn't connect it because we didn't have the right connections for it. But also, now that you're talking about the velocity sensitivity, how does those two knobs work? Because there's two of them, right? There's one kind of where the filter is, I guess,
Oh yeah,
and then
yeah,
one where the amp is.
yeah. So I think that's all. how do Okay, so the amp is like how the overall sound is,
Mm-hmm.
on there. The velocity sensitivity on the filter is how quick the filter kicks in also. So it's all in there too.
So okay,
So
I'm sorry. What
go
is
ahead.
the filter on its own? Like when you say when the filter kicks in, what does I mean, you said like the LFO does the vibrato. What does the filter do? How do you know when the filter kicked in? Because of the whole attack decay
Let me
thing or what?
let me see. I have a Phantom 6 in front of me,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm powering it on, and maybe I can show you some kind
All
of.
those new
Well,
ones.
I can have you here because I actually in my studio I have everything hooked up through my mixer, which goes through my phone.
Oh,
So
nice.
so so I have everything hooked up because I have to show stuff sometimes, and so it's either I do it video and or audio. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm powering up the Phantom, and maybe we can hear some different examples that way. Or you know what? Maybe since see Phantom is everybody hooked up, I have to check. But let me see.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a virtual copy of the System 8. Let me just check my computer because,
Okay.
like I said, everything in my cage is hooked up, and yep, Phantom is hooked up to my main system. Let me turn on Logic, and I should be able to let you hear. We should be able to hear the System 8 virtually right now using Roland Cloud. There's a version of the System 8
Right.
in there. So I'm just starting it up right here. And yeah, I didn't even think about this. Sounds like we're going to do some System 8 stuff.
Hell
So
yeah, man.
uh,
I appreciate that because yeah, like I mean, I'm a big Roland person, man. Like I said, I got the D50, and I mean, it's pretty nice, and I want to learn more because I want to actually buy more stuff, you know?
absolutely. Yeah, we always appreciate that, and that's why, Roland is really cool with letting myself and other product specialists, really help our customers that way. So
Right.
they really they just kind of let us go, let us do our thing. If we can help, then we help. It's
There you
pretty
go,
neat.
man, and
Um,
it's pretty it's appreciated.
okay, let me see here. Okay, let me get this. Okay, hold on. Let me log into Rolling Cloud, sign in.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm just getting this all going. But yeah, it's so we'll be able to hear it as soon as I get this logged in. Come on.
Well,
We'll
while
get
you're getting ready, what's up with that Phantom? It's the flagship of Roland, the new one, right?
Yes, it's the flagship. Came out about a year ago, and we've been updating and updating, and we got more updates on the way. It's a killer.
Right.
I can layer up to 16 sounds simultaneously. Well, actually, even up to 32, 16 internal and up to technically 16 external. So that being software or hardware, it doesn't even matter.
Damn.
Um, so it's
That sounds
it.
complicated, man. If I'm having a problems with the System 8, imagine with that one.
No, I really go into I think like a kid. I really think like a kid. I thought about this years ago because watching your nieces and your nephews or kids around you, and a kid they don't know stuff is hard. I don't think they have that concept per se. They just take it in. So what I try and visualize when I'm learning stuff is I try and visualize like a horse with the blinders on, right? A horse has a blinders, right?
Right.
So as an adult we have those blinders on, and as a kid they have no blinders, their eyes are just wide open,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they're just taking in all that information, and that's what I feel we have to do as adults. We have to take off those blinders. And so one thing I try not to do is saying, oh, this is hard. Like, nah, don't say that.
True.
Is, don't say that. Yeah, and that's just me, just like, yeah, don't say that, because then if you say, man, that's hard, then it is.
True.
I've already said I've lost. I'm like, oh, so like, no, just
Did you catch on to synthesis pretty fast, or did it also take you a while to learn it?
well, it took me a while in the okay, there we go, good. Let's get my System 8. All right, cool. I'm just getting my stuff set up. It took me a while, and even today I'm still thinking about it. I'm
Right.
still, so and I'm still thinking about it. And like once I was, and I've read books on synthesis, and they're tough reads sometimes, but it's they're tough reads because it can be kind of boring. So I take a little bit at a time and like, oh, okay, what does this mean and what does that mean? So everything out there in the world is synthesized, in my opinion. Every sound that you hear is synthesized, and it's like, what do you mean by that? And so I kind of thought about that concept because I'm traveling a lot, got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of road time to think, and it was just like, well, think about it. So a bird, the bird oscillates. It oscillates its chirp, its singing sound.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, it does that, and then depending how the bird will move its beak or open it up and close it, that's doing a filtering and how it's doing it. The
Mm-hmm.
bird will decide use amplitude to how loud it's doing it because it'll have different volumes in there, and then when the bird does all that kind of stuff,
Right.
you could think of that like LFO. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just all. I know it's such a nerd thing. My wife is like, "You're such a nerd." I'm like, yeah,
No, but
but
that's true though. That's crazy.
yeah. So when you think about it in those kind of terms, it can be really cool. It's just like, oh, okay. But I'm always still learning because I've met synth people in my career that we're working on sounds, or they're coming up with a sound, and like some guys that I really respect, and I'm like, oh, that's let's do the Eurythmics sound. Sweet Dreams are made of these. All right, cool, cool. So they kind of make, and I'm like, oh, that sounds great. They're like, and there's some people that are like, no, 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 it's not right completely. And I'm like, sounds great to me, and and they just dial it in that extra where it's just like subtle and just like killer and stuff like that. So
Damn.
yeah, it's a learn. It's a it's a learn thing. It's
Man.
totally learn. It's not hard. Like I said, the basic concept is oscillator, filter, amp, and LFO, the basics, right?
Right.
But then you start looking at oscillator waveforms, and what waveforms can totally do different. Or you start looking at filters. Like, say for example, okay, can you hear that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm using a sound called PD Rich Strings on the System 8, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing it virtually and using the Phantom 6.
Mm-hmm.
So like this one sound, this is a real nice sound. All right, now there's three oscillators inside the System 8.
Right.
So I could come into here and I could say, you know what? I have used the mixer section. I say I'm going to turn off oscillator 3, which I don't think it's on right now. I'm going to turn off oscillator 2. So all you're going to hear is oscillator 1.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it's doing, right?
Right.
All right, well, cool. What if I go in there and I change in oscillator 1, I change the coarse tuning? And here's something cool that you might not know, Lewis, is this that do you know the numbers on that knob coarse tune where it says 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, and 2? You see those numbers?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What is
Do
it?
you
What?
know what those?
No,
Do you
I
know what
don't.
those come for?
Mm-mm.
Okay, cool. Here's for everybody out there. These are actually how many feet of pipe organ pipe needs to make that tuning, because synthesizers, and this includes B3s also. This is tells you how many feet of pipe, actual pipe, would
Right.
be needed to make that frequency. But
Oh
and because
wow.
these come from pipe organs. This is a pipe organ thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So it's not a synthesizer thing. No, this is old school pipe organ.
That's
So
crazy. So that.
yeah. So like if and so you'll hear sometimes the guys will say, they'll say, oh, and you'll sometimes see on the organs especially, you'll see the little foot notch above, the numbers. So right now,
Mm-hmm.
this particular one is a 16 foot, and here's 8. So, and when you look at it, it'll say 8 feet. Yeah, you know,
Right.
here's
Right.
4 foot. Okay, so it's changing all that stuff. So I'll put it back on 16. And right now that particular sound is a super saw. Well, what if I went into the waveform and I change it to like just a regular one saw? So big difference. And
Right. Yeah. Wow.
let me take off. There's a little bit of white noise on there. Cause take that off. Big difference of sound. You're like, what is that? Now
Mm-hmm.
look, if I go into that oscillator waveform and I change that from a saw to a square, which square, you can use for basses and for flutes and for other things. Totally different sound. Like,
Right.
and so that's kind of a cool thing. Here's a triangle. So you start going through some of these, you're like, okay. So let me go back to the Super Saw, and here's something you might not know. Super Saw, Roland came out with, I think it was in the mid 90s, about 1995, 97, with the JP 8000. So a Super Saw is technically seven sawtooths stacked together.
Oh damn.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was talking to one of the guys at Roland, killer player, killer doctor, and all this stuff, I'm like, well, why did you guys decide on 7? And this particular individual, he's from Vegas, and he's kind of he's a killer, but he's a kind of a smart aleck.
Mm-hmm.
He's like 777, baby, that's a winner, because he's from Vegas. And so
Mm-hmm.
so Japan was like, okay, cool, 7. 7 saws make up a super saw. So that's where that kind of comes from. And so yeah, there's all those kind of little bits. So this is a single saw, just one, right? And
Right.
then if we go into the super saw, which is 7, here we go. I'm just moving in here. It sounds bigger because it's technically
Yeah.
playing 7 saw. Now watch this. If we go into oscillator 2, and let me turn off oscillator 1 for a minute. Turn on oscillator 2. Notice this one's at a higher footage. It's an octave higher.
Right.
So, and it's also a super saw. Now watch this. I'll turn on oscillator 1. So I got that. Now I'm going to bring in slowly oscillator 2. See how it's filling it up?
Right. Right.
Okay, now watch this. I can bring in those 2, and then I'll go ahead and bring in oscillator 3. Now I'm going to turn off, and I'm doing the mixer section in the System-8.
Mm-hmm.
Let's turn on oscillator 3. What is oscillator 3? It's set up for a sine wave. Let's go ahead and hear it. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to turn it down 1 octave. So, okay, great. And then I'll go ahead and I got it in mix. I'll bring in oscillator 1. And then I'll bring in oscillator 2.
Oh damn.
So see, right there, just by turning on that sub oscillator and adjusting it in the mix,
Mm-hmm.
I have a much bigger. And then if I want to, I can bring in some noise. So noise being maybe something like some white noise, which is, or some pink noise, so it's just. So look at that pink noise by itself, almost sounds like the ocean.
Yeah, it's relaxing.
It's relaxing. So let's keep that pink noise, and I'll have the pink noise in. I'll bring in the sub oscillator number 3. I'll bring in oscillator 1. I'll bring in oscillator 2. Now I'm going to go into oscillator 2, and I'm going to adjust the fine tuning. I'm going to put it out of tune a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You hear the fine tuning?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that makes it like the keyboard's almost like drifting or slightly out of tune with the other oscillator. I put them slightly out of tune from each other. Just one. And then so now I get a bigger sound. You hear how that sounds evolving? Now listen to this. I'm sorry. Like, so I'm holding one note. Now I'm going to adjust the cutoff.
Right.
I'm moving that cutoff. Now I'll adjust the resonance where I want that cutoff to attack the frequency. And now, so I got the resonance turned up high, and now I'll go into the cutoff and turn that up, and it's going to squeal. So I'm moving it. So I want to squeal. So now when I play it, it's another different sound. And did you hear the filter? Hear how it goes? Ramps up.
Right, right.
And when I let go, how about we do it the other way? Let's go. Let's see if we can do it. The envelope. I'm using the envelope in the filter.
Mm-hmm.
You hear it? It did like a scoop, and then it went back up. So it like went down and went back up. And
right.
Then, so you're just kind of seeing right there. We're just kind of adjusting some things. So now I have the attack. I'm gonna have it do a slow attack of that envelope. So if you listen, no, a fast attack. So
right.
look at how fast. Listen to this. Okay. Now on the release, I'm gonna have it do a slow release. And I'm still in the filter. So now it's gonna go a fast attack down, and then it's gonna do a slow release back up. Let's see if I did this right. Fast attack down, slow release up. You see that?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So and now let's have some more fun. You're like, okay, so we got some cool stuff going, and we're just using one sound. Now, what if I go into the amplitude, and I'm like, okay, so right now I have it at a slow attack. You know, how long does it take from when I hit the keys for the sound to kick in?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do a slow attack, like a real slow attack. It's gonna take it a while to kick in. And you see, and then you heard it go down.
Right. Yeah.
And now I let go. Okay. Now I'm gonna put it with a fast attack. Watch what happens. Totally different sound.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna adjust the release on the amplitude. So watch this. Now the sound immediately dies when I release the key. I'll put that slow release on. I'll let go of the key. I let go of the key like 5 minutes ago. Now see, it's easy. So and then fast release. You know, so
right. Totally different feelings of how you hear that same sound and stuff.
Totally different feelings. Watch this. And so I'm going to put the attack on the amp and the release, about middle. So they have a nice hang. Now I'm going to go into the LFO, and let's have some fun. I'm just holding down. I'm going to say, LFO, I want you. Look, I'm not even moving anything. That's the envelope going up and down just by holding it. Okay? So now I'm going to go into the LFO. That's the LFO now changing pitch.
Right.
I'm just holding down the note. Now I'm going to go into the rate of the LFO, and I'm going to turn it up. Watch what's going to happen. Okay?
Right.
Now I'm going to go into the fade time of the LFO. I'm like, LFO, I like what you're doing, but you need to hold up. Hold up. I want to have the regular sound first. So I'm going to go into the fade time and adjust how long it takes. So here now, let's put some more fade time.
Okay.
And oh, look, I didn't let go of it. It just is. So I can like, let's hold. Envelope drops, slowly bring it in. There's the LFO. Oh, here I am.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So and so all we adjusted on this was the oscillators, and I adjusted the mix of the like a mixer. It even says mixer on there. I
Mm-hmm.
adjusted that. We adjusted the filter, kind of how it evolves over time, and you can see with the cutoff and the resonance, we can kind of like, okay, here's where I want you to kick in this frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the amplifier, you heard like, well, shoot, I can make that sound like a string of like a light brass stabs, or I can actually make it sound like strings. And then you saw at the end there LFO, and we just chose the one variation that's on there. Just we just changed it real quick, and it's like, yeah, you can come up with some really killer stuff.
Hell
Just
yeah, man. Also,
so.
let me
Go
ask you,
ahead.
man. When you were talking about the fine tuning, I noticed. I think oscillator two has the sync oscillator sync or something like that.
Yeah.
What is the
Okay.
difference between those?
So on the oscillator sync, um, what it does is, and it's hard to. Well, okay, if we're just talking, so think of the two oscillator waveforms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you think of waveforms, and they're just kind of moving. There's like little squiggly lines in there. So when we have one, it just squiggles, and it's no thing. But we have two, they're squiggling together, but then they get out of sync depending on like tuning, different things and stuff like that. So you
Mm-hmm.
have one going one way, one the other way, one just kind of there. Oscillator syncs puts both of those waveforms where they move together. They're together. They're in
Mm-hmm.
sync with each other, and that could have a big effect. Let me go ahead and turn off. Let me turn off the rate and turn off this pitch. There we go. Okay. Let me adjust. I'm just making some adjustments. Let me put that envelope. You see it? How cool is that?
It sounds really nice.
And then so like that the decay, I can have it do a slow decay. Like I'm in the filter. Dude, I'm just holding one thing. All right, let me
It
put that
sounds
back.
really cool.
It's pretty cool, and the thing is, I'm just using one sound, just
Mm-hmm.
one. I'm not switching. For everybody that's listening, if you're a big nerd like us, and you're listening, I'm just using that one sound. It's the standard sound that's in there, the PD rich strings. I think it's A5. I think that's what it is. One of my favorite sounds. But just using that. So I just put the filter envelope at zero, pretty much a zero.
Mm-hmm.
Put that there, and then I'm gonna put the attack decay release, attack decay sustain release, pretty much there. So you're not gonna hear a lot of movement,
Right.
except at, let me see, who's doing that? Yeah. So I have that going, and then you were talking about the sync. So I'm gonna sync those two guys together. So right now we're not sunk together. Let's press. I'm gonna press the sync, and let's hear what we get. So I'm gonna turn off oscillator 3 and the white noise. So all you'll hear is oscillator 1 and 2, which sound like this. Okay, let's see. I'm just getting this there. They could say, "Oh, this is all so hard." It's like it doesn't have to be. Oh,
Right.
it's my filter. Okay, cool. So, yeah. So look at that, all that movement. I'm just putting everything back at zero real quick. Um, yeah, it can be a lot of fun.
It
There we go.
is,
All right, cool.
man.
And I'll adjust the attack on the amp.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now let's listen to. I'm gonna hit sync. So let's go. Now let's hit the sync.
Oh, okay.
So let's unselect sync. and now sync and think in your mind those waves they're waving, and
Right.
now we put them together. Now they're in sync.
It sounds more like one.
Yeah, it sounds like one. They're together. They're in sync.
Mm-hmm.
They're all in there. So it's cool.
It
It's
is,
cool.
man.
So
Also, I know that the System 8 is part of a that IRA range. I don't
yeah,
even know how to say IRA.
era,
Era. Yeah.
and and our partners in Europe say IRA. So yeah, it's era in the US. We say
Era.
era, but it's
And
whatever. It's all
well,
good.
talking about that, I mean, because I didn't know until I bought the VT4, right? But I mean, when I was talking, I think it was with Sweetwater, they said that I could connect that VT4 with this with the System 8. But I also noticed that the System 8 has what you would call it, those
Vocoder?
vocoders. So
Yeah.
I mean, why would you want to connect the VT4 if this already has a vocoder in it?
It just depends what you're looking for. The cool thing about all this stuff is well, there is a wrong way. If it's not sounding, it's not working. But there's nothing wrong if you hook it up right. What I'm saying is like you
Hmm.
might want a different type of vocoder than maybe this one has.
Right.
You might want to have a different effect on there. So um, it's they're just saying you can via MIDI. You can hook it up via MIDI if
Hmm.
you want it. If you wanted to, you don't have to.
Right.
Maybe that particular salesperson forgot that this has a vocoder in it.
Hmm.
It's all good. That's the cool thing about all this stuff is you can like for fun. Like I hooked up a TR8S and a TB3 and a System 8 all together via MIDI,
Right.
and they're automatically all tempo synced together. And I would usually have the TR8S, be the master clock.
Hmm.
And dude, if you put like a TB303 together and a TR8S or a MC707 with a System 8, dude, you got a killer party in the house.
But
You got a lot of great stuff. Yeah. All of a sudden, you got this massive soundtrack. You're like, what is going on? And the cool thing is, and I love computers, but the cool thing, it's not computers. It's all
right.
like organic. It's organic, and you can. I was in Houston at a store, and like I said, I hooked up. I hooked up at that time. It was the TR8 before the 8S, System 8, TB3, and I think it was. Um, what is that? A performance mixer. I put them all to this performance. The MC. I forget what it's called right now.
Right.
But I hooked it. I hooked them all up, and we had it going through the big. They had everything, the subs, the big system, and everybody's like, "What is that?" Because the System 8 was just blowing, and the TB3 through those subs, and everything was just boom, bouncing, booming. TR8 was kicking some 808 drums with a low, and then I could go in there and just really fine tune them and really make it,
Right.
woo. It was the whole store was like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, bro, just
Yeah.
hooked it up." And then everything was hooked up um, with our performance mixer. I can't think of the model right now. It's because I'm out of coffee. And I was able to control everything just live, and what I was playing with was nothing. It was uh all just live. There was nothing
Right.
like pre-canned.
And
Yeah, that's a cool thing.
talking about mixers for these things, what about that one that MX something? The
Oh, the
MX.
MX1. Thank you. That's what it
Oh,
is.
that's the one you
That's
were talking about.
Yeah, that's what I was using. I was using the MX1. So what I was doing, it was the MX1.
Hmm.
I had all of these other instruments hooked up to it. Some via MIDI, some via through USB. I think I had the TV3 hooked up via USB. But anyway, I think I had them all hooked up USB if I remember. But they all were going into a specific channel of the MX1, and then on that channel, each channel could have its own separate filtering, its own separate effect kind of going, different thing. And then the MX1, I had it being the master tempo, so I can adjust everybody, and everybody was just in hard sync together. And the
Hmm.
MX1 it is it is like a sleeping beauty. And what I mean by that is they're like, if you just buy MX1, you're like, what does it do? It doesn't make any sound. No, it doesn't make any sound. by
Mm-hmm.
itself.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you hook up some of that other pieces to it, and even I can take some of my older keyboards that don't have the filtering that's easy to get to, or some of the stuff, man, I throw those things in the mix with that, and that,
Right.
man, it's like it gives them. It's like you take an old car and you put like a fuel injection. You're just like, whoa, what's that? So it really makes it.
Right.
It's just like, oh, it's like after you run an MX1 with other gear into it, like it's supposed to be, you're like, oh, I get it. I
Mm.
see.
And
But yeah, on its own, you're like, oh, what is this?
and
But when
and would it also
Go ahead.
sync up with other manufacturer keyboards or just with Roland, the MX one?
With anything. It has MIDI with anything. It
Oh,
doesn't it
okay.
doesn't matter. The cool thing about Roland, of course, we want you to use Roland stuff,
Right.
obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But that's not the way the world works. So that's where Mr. Kakahashi, the founder of Roland, and Dave Smith and Mr. Bob Moog, when they kind of worked together as competing manufacturers back in the day, they came up with MIDI, and that's a musical instrument digital interface. That's so everybody could play together. That's
Mm-hmm.
you know that's so they could play together. And so, yeah, with MIDI, the MX1 will work with anybody.
And
you know.
talking about that MIDI, man, I remember as a kid, right, going to those old Mexican grupero concerts, and I would see the
Oh yeah.
keyboardists have like five or six keyboards, and like one song ends, and right away, he has these sounds for the other song on board. Is that done through MIDI? Like, how do they get to their sounds so quick? Do you know?
Absolutely. So, in the old days, they have multiple keyboards, and multiple keyboards will be kind of sometimes set up. Like, they're playing, song A, and then song B is on this set of keyboards. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
But also via MIDI, like in our Phantoms, our Jupiter X's, certain of our big boards, even our FA, our Roland FAs, you can send external MIDI control messages. And what that means, what that means is like I can go to what we call a scene inside the Phantom,
Mm-hmm.
and inside that scene, that encompasses all the 16 zones in the Phantom, which they can be internal sounds or zones, or they be external, which can send program change information, such as when I go to a particular scene in the Phantom, it could trigger a whole other sound patch scene on a Jupiter 80, on a Korg Kronos, on a motif. It doesn't matter. It's via MIDI. So
Right.
I could have it set where and this is what when I work with some of the artists, I help them and we configure it so no matter what keyboard they're going, if they're using the Roland as the master, they can go ahead and they program it, and when you press that one button on there to switch to a particular sound, it switches all of your keyboard rig,
Damn.
anything
Mm-hmm.
with MIDI. So you could have, and we've done this. I could have a Phantom tell the System 8, hey, switch to this sound, switch to this
Right.
sound for me, and then have them all synced up once ever we decide, okay, System 8, you're not the tempo master, the Phantom is. So whatever the Phantom tempo is, that's what you are. And, so that's all via MIDI. It's absolutely, and it's
That's
all just
crazy.
binary code, ones and zeros, man.
Right.
It's and we're saying just keyboards, but on some of the guitar effects processors, they have MIDI.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the V drums have MIDI. I've seen in the past one of the old guys at Roland. He used to use his Phantom G because it had 128 MIDI tracks.
Right.
He would have it hooked up to his light show,
Oh,
and
what?
so yeah, because Light DMX has MIDI. It has MIDI in there. So
Mm-hmm.
so so if you do the homework, my buddy had it to where he would play a sequence on the Phantom, and then he would have different DMX messages, MIDI messages going from the Phantom to his DMX controller via MIDI, and he would turn the lights on, turn the lights off, spark, boom, boom,
Yeah.
and so for the show, he would just press play on, for his band, he would press play, they'd play the track, and the light show would be in sync because it's just running with the sequencer on the Phantom. Yeah,
Damn.
man.
That's pretty
There's
neat.
it and MIDI can be scary, but if you just take it slow and remember MIDI old school wise when you're using the cables, MIDI is a one-way street. And so if I'm having the Phantom control a System 8, I go Phantom out of the Phantom into the System 8. So it's like, hey, I'm sending this out to you from me, and it goes into you, and it's like, okay, cool, yeah.
Yeah.
And then every keyboard has every patch and sound in the keyboard has what we call MSB, LSB, and program change number, which is most significant bit, least significant bit, and program change. But here it is. Here's what it is in English. Each sound lives in a neighborhood, MSB. Each sound lives on a street, LSB, and each sound has a house number, program change. So once you know those three numbers, hey, what neighborhood do you live in? What's your street? What's your address?
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay, it's cool, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what keyboard. Pretty much 99.9% of keyboards do this.
Right.
You know.
Damn,
Yeah,
that's
man.
pretty brilliant. Also, I had a
Dude,
question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, no. I'm thinking, I like, we could blow your mind. You could be like, what? And then when you go and look at your gear, it sparks like a, oh crap,
Hell
because
yeah.
like for me, when I was learning this and just really kind of digging in, I was in LA, and I was talking to some of my homies over there, and we were talking about this stuff because we're nerds, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to go home. I want to go home. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because they show me some stuff, and I'm like, I need to go home. You know, I need to go in my studio, and I need to do some homework. That's another thing,
Exactly.
kids. Do your homework. It's not always school. Sometimes it's like figuring stuff out. Do your homework. So I
Exactly.
was like, I gotta go home, and they were all laughing at me. I'm like, is this event we're doing over yet? I'm ready to go. You know. But once I got back home to my studio, all my theories and hypotheses and stuff that I was kind of like, okay, if this does this, then it's like an if-then statement.
Right. Hmm.
Uh, that's what I do a lot. I'm like, oh, if the Phantom does this or the System 8 does this, then it should do this. So that's my hypothesis. And so then I get into the studio and like, all right, let's see where the rubber meets the road, and just like, and then when that does that, sometimes it's like, it's like, oh crap, and I've been there, and I've yelled down to my wife or someone, but do you know what this means? And they're like, no, Ed, what does this mean? And I'm just like, oh crap, and I just get back into there, and then that's when you do shows and you do there, and people are like, how did he do that? Like, yeah, because he had that. He did the if-then statement, did his hypothesis, did his homework, and
Yeah.
and then it's like, it's amazing. Yeah.
Dang. Um. Also, man, that's true, and these things could do badass things. And I noticed that with the Jupiter A, I mean with the new Phantom. I'm sorry. I saw a video that you made with that. I guess you could record a sound into the Phantom of any sound, and then you could replay it somehow. It can copy it.
Yeah. Yeah, with the Phantom, you can do what we call sampling, and so you can take. Hey, is that interference? Are you guys hearing that?
Yeah, man. Someone's cutting the grass here. I'm so sorry.
Okay, no, we can wait for a second.
All right.
Yeah, no, that happens.
No,
But
but hold on right quick.
uh,
It, I mean,
yeah.
just go ahead, man. I'm sorry. We'll go ahead and fix it afterwards. But what were you saying?
Okay, well, cool. As long as you're getting a clean thing.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So inside the Phantom, we know there's a lot of different things the Phantom does, but one of the things it also does is sampling. And so sampling basically is able to take a recording. You can record something, a sample, and you could take that sample and you could kind of play it in the keys or play it, however. Then we have another thing where we can take a group of samples or something we call a multi-sample, and then we can align those in various parts of the keyboard, the key bed, and we can kind of essentially take that sound and put it in the Phantom, and it's doing through a process called multi-sampling. So we'll take sections of a sound, sections of a particular keyboard or a soft synth, and then we can multi-sample it and then lay it in the keyboard, and the Phantom will pull from those samples. Yeah. So
Um,
you can and I I advocate this for someone that has like maybe some old gear or something stuff like that. They don't like if I have a vintage Jupiter 8, I don't
mhm.
want to take that out on the road. I don't want to take that out to some cantina or anything like that.
Right.
So I might take and multi-sample certain sounds, not the whole keyboard, but I'll take certain sounds that I'm going to use, and then I'll put them inside a Phantom, or and play them back that way.
And and
Just
and, and does is it really good with the sound? Like, does it sound exactly like that sound, or is it there might be a little bit of differences?
it actually is gonna sound good. There will be some. It depends. If you wanted to just compare the multi-sample versus the sample, you might be able to notice some slight differences. But it all depends how you record it.
Mm-hmm.
If you record it good and with good quality, you're gonna get good quality out. You know what I mean? So because the Phantom records at 16-bit, which is CD quality, so it's gonna sound good.
Right.
But then also, like we were talking about earlier, within that multi-sample, you have some synth parameters you can do to maybe like adjust it, maybe do some editing of the parameters, maybe add some effects so that weren't otherwise there in what you sampled. So it's I'm not going to say necessarily it's going to get worse, but once again, it also depends on how good your recording is.
Right.
It's only as good as it came in. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but no, it's going to do a good job because I know I've used multi-samples in the past, and people are like, "Oh, that's a such and such," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, it is, but it's multi-sampled. It's not real,
Right.
and they don't know. They don't need to know. People don't. People, as long as it sounds good, it's like, hey, who
Mm-hmm.
cares?
Well, like
That's
like
that's what I.
like I said, I'm a fan of that D50, and I like those that sound like Living Calliope and the Staccato Heaven and the
Oh yeah.
Fantasia. And I noticed that I mean you really kind of have to get the D50 if you want the actual sound, right? Because I mean, really, I haven't heard nothing that really sounds. I mean, I've seen the DO5, the boutique series. I mean,
Uh huh.
it sounds really close, but there's still like some little differences, right? Would you agree?
No, I wouldn't agree. Let me tell you. No, well, there are. Here's let me tell you the story about a lot of the era stuff and the boutiques. And the boutiques have something in them called ACB, which stands for analog circuit behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Analog circuit behavior. So what that means is back when era, when they were coming up with the whole era thing, they would take some of the vintage Roland synthesizers, and rather than sample those synthesizers, they would take the actual circuit boards that produce the sounds, and they
Mm.
would they would model them um, using computers and different modeling stuff. And so the story goes is one of the young engineers that was working in, just of course top secret in Tokyo in a basement. Uh, you know, it was a total top secret project, even from a lot of the head Roland people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they went in there, and the story goes, one of the head engineers in charge of the project gave him a circuit board and said to model this circuit board. And the young engineer said, well, what am I modeling? And the other older engineer said, you don't need to know what you're modeling. Just model it. Model the circuit board. Because he didn't want that particular young engineer to kind of put his alter. He wanted to just
Mm-hmm.
take it exact. So inside the boutiques, one thing I love about the boutiques, such as the DO5, is that a lot of the limitations or the warts on the original keyboard, the things that make them,
Mm-hmm.
the anomalies. Since they modeled the circuit boards so well, not sampled, they modeled them how they react without knowing what they were. They have those same limitations and those same little pimples and stuff on them. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's so cool that inside you could take a Sysx from a D50, and you could throw it into a DO5 and get all your sounds there.
Right.
It's so killer. And then with Roland Cloud, we've taken all of that, and you can get a D50 in here. And then even in my Phantom here that I'm actually using, I have a ton of D50 sounds. So if I wanted to, I can come in here. Let me pull one up. And you
Mm.
said, of course, everybody's favorite is the Fantasia. Let me go to my
Yeah, that one
bell
sounds
set.
really nice, man.
Yeah, the let me see the bells. Oh, where's my stuff? Yeah, the cool thing with the Phantom is there's like I think there's close to 10,000 sounds in here.
God
But
damn, man.
which is cray cray, but the cool thing is you can actually come into here and do a search. and so I just typed in fan, and so like check this out. I can have there's a different one. Oh, let me see. Oh, I know what's going on. I'm also triggering. I'm triggering the System-8. I'm like, how come it's doing that? It's 'cause- there you go. So here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of them. Turn this up.
Right.
So there's a.
Is that staccato heaven?
On that one, that's AX Fantasia.
Oh, okay.
But there's a bunch of. Here's a D50 Fanta percussion. There's a whole bunch of them.
So there's different variations of Fantasia in the Phantom.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh
Wow.
yeah. And then don't forget, I have those different variations. Here's one. Where's one? There's. Let me see. I'm just find one. So I can take something like this one. It's called D50 Fantasia. That's just what it's called. So, and I can take those synth parameters we were talking about,
Right.
and maybe go in here and adjust some filtering in here. I can adjust how it reacts in here. I can come into here and say, all right, let's go ahead, and I'll go in and say, I want that Fantasia. Single tone. Oh, no. Oh, hold on. Let me see here. Zone feed. There we go. I can take that Fantasia sound and I can say, oh, man, maybe I want to go ahead and put it. And you were talking about some of the old school type of sounds. I could say, you know what? Let me go ahead and take like some of the strings things here. And I could say, well, let me go ahead and bring in some D70 strings. So I can say, so I can have this sound. And I put it with the Fantasia. And then if I wanted to, I can come into here again and say, all right, I want to have that, but maybe I want to put some kind of choral sound into it. And I'll just pick up something here, put that Fantasia, put a string. Or maybe I want to go ahead and say, you know what, let me go ahead and put like an old school kind of brass sound, and maybe I want to do a synth brass, and I'll take down some of the other sounds real quick, and so you see, it's kind of like going for those old Tejano.
Yeah. It sounds really nice. I
Yeah.
love those sounds, man.
Yeah, so so I love the D50. I love the old gear, but I'm never gonna say, I'm not gonna put myself in the corner and go, well, it's not gonna be as good as the original, blah blah blah. No, dude, you can do like I
Right.
love the old stuff. I love the limitations of the old things because for me sometimes it's kind of like it's nice for me to go, well, that doesn't do it. Like the D50 sampler is horrible. Well, what do you mean, Ed? It doesn't have a sampler. Exactly.
Right.
So yeah, it does what it does, and I love it for it. But then I'm really open to the new gear because it has the same DNA, and sometimes we have some of the same engineers. They're still with us, not retired, that are working that worked on the original stuff are working on the new stuff, and so the same DNA is in it. So I just try and caution some of the musicians like, oh no, it doesn't sound like, dude, it sounds killer. And then when you put it on the big stage with the whole band and everything going, you're gonna be like, wow, that sounds like the D50 mess with this and that. It's like, no, it's the Phantom, or it's the Jupiter X, or it's a FA. Yeah, it's just all how you program. It could be a lot of fun. A lot of fun, man.
And are those boutique DO5 still for sale, or they stopped selling those?
Well, I'm not for sure right now. I think they might still be around in different retailers. You would have to look, and call your local retailer. Please support your local music business. I love that. But the boutiques generally speaking, are limited editions. There are limited editions. So like, If you see one and that's what one that you want, and you're like, I want this, figure out a way to get it. Figure out a
Right.
way, because once they're gone, they're gone. That's
Mm-hmm.
on those.
Right.
Because I know on the first series, which was like the uh, JX3P version, the JX03, I think it was called. I went ahead and bought that one because I knew it was limited edition, and there's the other first ones. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if it's something you want, man, get it. And like I said, I love those because they're exact replicas of the originals. They're just exact.
Yeah.
Even some of like the JU06 is such an exact replica of the Juno 106 that some of the chorus issues, it had some kind of like weird chorus thing it used to do when you put them both on.
Mm-hmm.
Even the boutique does it. It does the
Right.
weird thing
So
because it's modeled.
right. So are these, you know how the System 8 you could put in those keyboards you said, like the Jupiter 8 and the Juno 106, and
Oh yeah.
that's based also on the boutique series, right? Because I think I saw one other video that they said that.
Yeah,
This,
well, those are based off of analog circuit behavior. So
mm-hmm.
that's a cool thing for all of you out there. The System 8 engine is its own engine, right? It's its own engine, but
Mm-hmm.
that we have something called plug outs, which you have plugins for the computers. Well, these are also plugins, but you can plug out from the computer, and they go into the System 8, so you can take them with you.
Mm-hmm.
So the cool thing about the System 8, and we did this a couple of years ago when it was out. I was at a synth store in Austin, and they had a Jupiter 8, and I had the System 8 with the Jupiter 8 plug-in,
Mm-hmm.
plug out in it, and they were like, okay, Ed, we'll see. So they grabbed the Jupiter 8, and they're like, let's see how good this thing really is. I'm like, all right, bring it, you know, and we set up the System 8 and the Jupiter 8 head to head, same oscillator, same everything, so it's a pretty similar test, and and the system, they couldn't tell the difference between the System 8 and the Jupiter 8.
Okay.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the System 8's better. I'm not going there. But there was a time there we had both. We had the guy was holding down the keys. He was holding down the keys on the System 8, playing a Jupiter 8 patch, and the System 8 all of a sudden did what we call a drift. It drifted in the tuning, which was unstable tuning, just
Mm-hmm.
like the old vintage keyboards did. And it's not it's like a tickle in your ear. It's not like it's going. It's like a real subtle like. It's like a real subtle thing that the old keyboards were used to do,
Right.
and the System 8 did it, randomly, while the guy would just happen. We were talking, and he was holding it down. He was like, "What just happened? What just happened? Did that thing just drift?" And it's like, yeah. And so you can go into the System 8, and if I remember correctly, it's called conditional. I think it's called conditional tuning. Conditional. So you can have it do that. It could do like just kind of a weird, like just tuning, random kind of tuning. You can
Mm-hmm.
adjust. It can adjust the condition on it. So if it's a brand new Jupiter 8, oh, here it is. Yeah, I'm looking right out on the top of the screen. It says condition. You can have it to where the tuning is unstable or stable, where the condition will go either negative for flat or sharp would be plus. Yeah, you
Where
can you
where is
can
this
adjust.
condition but knob or whatever? Where is it?
Well, it's inside. So if you go inside, if you go, and
Oh,
like I
it's
said,
in
I
the
don't have one in
menu.
front of me. It's in the menu,
Oh, okay, okay,
and I,
okay.
I believe it's gonna be menu system. You can go in there, you can look at the condition, so you can have it so the tuning is less stable, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and just adjust it by a touch, play with it and stuff, and it's not gonna be all of a sudden, bad. But there's going to be it's going to allow the keyboard to kind of breathe in that, like, oh, what it just gives it that little bit of realism.
Right.
I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not like, oh man, but because I like all my stuff stable, but it's kind of neat. It's kind of neat
Right.
when I've used it, and it's just like what just happened? What just happened? So it's pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah. I,
Dang.
I love I love all that stuff. Yeah, System 8's it's a killer, man. And it's just so fun to get lost inside it.
Right.
Just kind of play with.
And
Yeah.
speaking about the plug outs, man, I haven't really had a chance to mess with the whole plug out and stuff. If you know how it comes with three other the Jupiter 8, the Juno 106, and the JX3P, I think. Um, but if you say I wanted to put the D50 in the third slot, would I lose the JX3P, or can I save it somewhere in the computer file and switch them back and forth? How does that work?
Yes. Okay, so you have three slots for plug outs, and I can't remember if the D50 is one of them. I have to check right now. I don't know if it
Oh,
is.
it might not be.
Uh, yeah, I don't think it. I don't think it is. I have to check real quick. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
think it is. But and I could be wrong. It's been a minute. Like I said, it's been a minute. I have to just review. But generally, you have three slots in there, and you can remove them. You can remove them, and of course they'll save to your computer, because you own them. But in my opinion, with the Jupiter 8, that always stays in. The Juno 106 always stays in, and the same thing with the JX3P for me. Some other people love the SH 101 that stays in there for them, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I'm just reviewing real quick in front of me where to go, what the plug outs are for that particular stuff, but for the System 8. But yeah, man.
So
So
it's
you
not the
you
same with the cloud versions of, because I think the D50 they made it with the Roland Cloud thing, no?
well, I'm looking real quick. Hold on with me one
Oh,
second.
okay. I'm sorry.
And yeah, I'm looking up because the D50, and I'm just seeing because I'm looking up the D50 in the cloud. Uh, let's see. I don't. Yeah, I see the D50 in the cloud, but I'm trying to see if it's a plug out. If some of my other Roland guys are end up looking like, don't you remember? I'm like, I don't know. So let me see. Let me see. Hold on. I'm gonna pull up the System 8 real quick and see if we can tell you what the plug outs are exactly, because I don't want to get that wrong. You know, I don't want to get that wrong for everybody. But I know that. Let's see. Where are you? Yeah, I just know. Well, think about it. A Jupiter 8, on the street. I've heard it from anywhere from cost $6,000 up to like 12, or it could be
Damn.
depending on condition.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at that kind of stuff, it's just like wow, and we're essentially giving you a Jupiter 8, in the
Exactly.
price. Juno 106 can go for about $1,500. I think up to three. I have to check. Um, and that's totally cool. Let me see here. SH101, that's a hard one to find if you can find it.
Mm-hmm.
JX3Ps are also very popular because they had a very very sound. We used to use them in the Tejano bands all the time, the JX3P.
Oh, for real,
So
that one too?
oh, absolutely, because well, you got to think the JX3P. It had the programmer that was, you put it on the top right of the keyboard, and it had an actual programmer in there, so you could get into the oscillate, the whole synth editing parameters there too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, oh, absolutely. My father programmed a really pretty cool accordion sound that he used for years.
Nice.
That that was cool. And then also being from Texas, uh, as the keyboards got more advanced with more effects, you could program a killer accordion sound. And then if you wanted to do like a Steve Jordan, El Apache, if you wanted to do that accordion sound with some chorus and what was the other? He did chorus and flanger,
Mm-hmm.
so you could make that sound all of a sudden and it sound pretty good, it sounds pretty good. So if you did, so the keyboards could do all that. So but as far as I'm trying to look up real quick which plug outs work for this guy because it's been a minute. But I know that the Jupiter 8, Juno 106, the SH101, the JX3P. Here we go. I'm looking real quick, see if I can find it real fast. Uh, and I think there was one of the old models, which was called was it the Saturn? Hold on, because you got to go. The cool thing, Roland has such a long history. I think it was
Yeah.
the SH2 was one of the ones that you could use for plug outs in there. So that's a really old one right there. And the cool thing about the System 8 when you're using some of the plug outs, say like the SH101 technically only had one oscillator.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll notice when you use some of these plug outs, some of the lights on the System 8 they unlight. They're
Right.
not lit. because that particular thing wasn't available in the original keyboard. So it's not an option when you use those plug outs. So Roland really focused on making those sounds true to what they are. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. It's pretty
Yeah,
cool
yeah.
stuff.
So, of course, I mean, let me ask you for an opinion. Why do you think the D50 isn't as popular as like the Jupiter 8 and Juno 106? If I mean, I still see it being played by a lot of bands, especially Spanish. I know Depeche Mode went hard on that D50, and I mean, why do you
So,
think people don't like it as much?
well, it's funny. Your question is, you kind of answer your own question. It's like, well, how come people don't like it? And then you're telling me you see it being used still a lot to this day. So I think it is popular because everybody always wants the Fantasia sound. So some of the brass from that D50 were just killer. There's a lot of some
Mm-hmm.
of the strings. So the D50 is actually, that DNA is in a lot of the current Roland synthesizers. So
Right.
D50 was popular and is popular because when we came out with the V-Synth GT, no, the V-Synth module, the V-Synth XT. It was
Mm-hmm.
a module, and you could turn it on in D50 mode, where it was a D50. We have the
Mm-hmm.
D05, we have the D50 in the Roland Cloud available. D50 lives in a lot of our keyboards. D50, it is funny. D50 is still, I say it is popular, but as these keyboards age, they're harder to find. And I think the D50 came out. I think it was 87,
Yeah,
87,
87.
80.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, um, yeah. So it is popular. And I'm not arguing. It is popular, but I don't know. I think people don't realize. But like you're just saying, I love when I come across a D50 being played live because it's like you go, girl, you,
Hell
you
yeah.
go. It's still used, and it's still one that I enjoy. The brass sound. That's one of my favorite brass sounds. The way it hits.
Hell
And
yeah.
yeah, and let's see. I think I do have one in here, in the Phantom, and let me just search real quick. Yeah, so the D50, in my opinion, it's still there. It's still there. It's in the DNA of a lot of our synthesizers,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. I'm seeing if I can find the D50 brass real quick, and like right now, of course, I see the fantasy ones. Let's see. Oh, is this a set? Oh, yeah. There's the
That's the staccato heaven.
that's the staccato hammer. What
Hell
is
yeah.
that? That sounds like the Selena.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah, that's
remember
what
the.
Selena, but she used the D70 though.
Yeah, but that's still D50 DNA.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and you have some of the brass.
But wasn't the D7 sampled though?
Well,
Wasn't it
actually,
sample
it's
based?
it's funny you say that. So the D50 is actually it's a hybrid. It's half sampled and half straight up analog synth. It was one of the first hybrid synthesizers.
Mm-hmm.
So it had sampled attacks. So sampled attacks in there.
Right.
The D50. So yeah, and the D50 came before the D70, but the yeah, the D50 was known for having sampled attacks
Right.
in there. So that's when Roland really, that was that was when Roland really got into using samples, sample. I don't want to say libraries, but sampled PCM
Right.
PCM sounds.
PCMs.
So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so uh, that's when you kind of saw the transition from analog over into digital, be it digital PCMs, and then Roland stayed there for many, many years. And if I tell people, if you learn how to program on the D50, you can program on most synthesizers, definitely most Roland, because that's what, if you look inside, and you're making me look. Hold on one second. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
let me shut down this, which I love. This is just fun. But if I go into, I'm opening up a virtual D50 here, so I can have all this. See, that's a great thing with Roland Cloud. I can have all the sounds, and I can actually just call them up. Like, oh yeah, hold on, let me just bring up a D50. Here it is, D50. Yeah, so I can bring up a D50 here, and the great thing with, if you open it up, and here we go. Hold on. There we go. There's D50. All right, cool. So, what is that first sound? Hold on. Let me just see what this first sound is. Oh, it's the first super saw. So yeah.
Wow.
So if you open up a D50 and look at the editing part of it, all the controls, basically, you really see that's when we got into the time variant section of keyboards. Where
Hmm.
we can adjust not only filter or amp, as we were just doing it traditionally, but everything had a time. So how it would evolve over time. You got more parameters and different things like that
Hmm.
that you
But
could
it's way
do.
harder to program because you have to get into the menus, right?
Like I said, I don't say hard. It's just you just have to learn how to talk to it. You got to learn how
Right.
to talk to it. And so, because I know, growing up, I was learning how to program on the JX3P programmer, and I knew nothing. So I was just, do this knob, do that knob, just all about. But like right now, once we broke it down, just talking about oscillators, and we just broke it down talking about the different sections of synth, and we didn't even go over the entire System 8, but just on those couple of sections, we're able to get a massive sound options.
Right.
You know, so that's what I just tell people. It's like, no, just take your time, and because there's sections of the synth part you're like, oh, I don't need to go into there.
Hmm.
What am I doing? I don't need to do that. So that's what I tell people. Just like, oh, no, you're making, yeah, don't make it hard. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. Just you just gotta, take. Well, like if I need to change the car, if I need to change the tire, in my car, do I need to open up the engine? No.
Right.
So it's the same thing. If I want to adjust something on here, it's like, oh, I don't need to go into the whole thing. It's like, oh, I know I want to adjust the tuning of the particular sound. Well, I'll go into the tuning section. But if we don't know those basics, then we're gonna go, okay, well, okay, what do I do? I got to go here. No, you
Right.
don't. And I'm not throwing shade at anybody. It's just like, no, you don't make it hard. It can be fun. It can be a lot of fun. But you just gotta understand the basic fundamentals of synthesis. And I'm still learning the basic fundamentals. I'm still like, okay, but I don't look at that as a negative. I look at it as it's just fun.
Right.
It's just
It
fun to
is.
me.
It's really fun, man. And man, you could sit down and start playing. Next thing you know, you've been there for like 3 hours. You're like, what the hell?
Oh, absolutely. You get into uh the 3 hours, and you get up, and you got a little bit of a hunchback, and you're like, okay, hold on, let me let the blood get back in there. Hold on, like, yeah,
Oh yeah.
absolutely,
Well,
yeah. That makes it fun.
Mr. Diaz, before we leave here, I wanted to ask you also one more question. Also, when I was looking up, videos of the System 8, there was one where they also had it like in this inspirational center they opened in Toronto, I think. Have
Oh
you been
yeah,
there? Have
Roland,
you been to
Canada.
that spot?
No, I haven't. It's on my list to go because I have a lot of great friends in Roland, Canada. I
Mm-hmm.
love to death, but I haven't been there. It's a beautiful spot. It's
Right.
beautiful. I hope it survives the pandemic. As far as funding and all that stuff, because everything's just so tough right now. But it's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. Our Roland Canada did an incredible job with that. Yeah,
Right. And
yeah.
so is that just a place for people to go and try out the Roland products, or what is it exactly?
I think it is a place for people to kind of go out. I don't believe it is. I don't believe it's a store. It's Roland Canada, so I'm not 100% sure. But
Mm-hmm.
Roland does not sell direct. We definitely support our local dealers and dealers around the world. But we are also want to be hand in hand with our users. With our
Right.
users, and help them. So I think it's just a nice place where artists, and in this I think they're at regular, just anybody can go in and just kind of try stuff. I'm not sure about right now, so nobody
Mm-hmm.
hold me to that. But yeah, I think it's just a cool way. I know we've talked about it here in the U.S.
Right.
About doing different in certain cities. But then the reality of business. Like, well, how much does that cost for the space, and then you got to have people there, and so it's
Mm.
it just varies. But I just it's a beautiful building, and I so want to go. Now I have been to Roland, Japan, in the R&D center. They
Hmm.
have a Roland museum there
Oh
uh,
wow,
of e-
nice.
of everything that's I think almost ever made, uh, and sometimes some of those old products that are in the museum are used for sample purposes. So they'll sample them and do stuff, and so they're all in pristine condition. And so you saw like the early keyboards or the certain keyboards or whatever that are like the what the what was that or
Right.
you see those weird products like what was this like the Roland we had our dance synthesizers in the late 90s
Hmm.
and I wasn't a fan but then now years later when you bump into some of these things you're like oh that okay it was like I wasn't ready for it and you're like oh okay I see what this is
Right.
cool. It was like a keyboard version of the Groove Box.
Hmm.
But yeah, we just weren't there. Like, so yeah, like, oh, I understand what this is now.
And
So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's,
also we wanted to go ahead and ask you: is it does this Roland have any open positions right now that people could easily go ahead and or where could people go ahead and see if Roland has any open positions? Is there like a website that they could go
yeah,
see? And,
absolutely. For Roland, you can just type in Roland.com and then it'll geotag you, so it'll bring you to Roland US. And then if you go on there, if you hit the company tab at the top there, there is a tab there that says employment opportunities.
Mhm.
So you can check there for different employment opportunities. And there's not a lot, but they do pop up. They absolutely do pop up. Um,
Mhm.
that's a great way, and there's office employment opportunities that come up. Sometimes there's product specialists. Sometimes there's there are different things that come up. For someone that wants to work for Roland or another music company, a lot of times the first step can be working at a music store.
True.
Working
Mhm.
working at a music store because I know, and it's not always the case, but I know we do like people that have worked at a music store because they have that retail experience and they understand.
Right, with the
Because
paperwork.
ultimately, yeah, well, and ultimately, we like people that were good salespersons and good employees because
Mhm.
working this kind of job, there's a lot of trust between my employer, Roland, and they trust me to do the right thing. Like when I travel to show up and do things, and
Right. Mhm.
so that's a lot of responsibilities. So, um, so that's you could just look direct. You could work at a music store and just have that as your long term, 5-year plan.
Right.
Uh, if you do work at a music store, sell a lot of gear, sell gear, be it Roland or whoever. Just be a good, like a kick-ass salesperson.
Right.
When the reps come in, or product specialists come in, man, be cool. Like I said, goes back to my original. Be cool.
Right.
Don't. And that doesn't mean kissing up. That's just be good. Just be a good dude. Because when I go out throughout the country through different stores. Uh, there's some employees that I meet that I'm just like, hey, how you doing? But then there's some that are just really good and they're like a partner to me.
Right.
And so I'm like, hey, I got lunch. Let's go get you some lunch. You know what I mean? And it's
Mhm.
just a little thing. It's just a little thing. It's not, you know, uh, but it's just our way of saying, hey, thank you for being, a killer.
Right.
Doing good at what you do. So
Mhm.
yeah, like I said, once again, it goes back to just be cool.
Just be
just be
cool.
just be cool.
Don't be a
Just be
dick.
cool. Do it. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Don't be a dick. Yeah, yeah. Just be cool. Do a good job, and people notice.
Right.
And yeah, and you never know. It might not be Roland that noticed. It might be another company that noticed. Or
Right.
you might, and then being a good salesperson that can go on with other parts of your life. Just being because I used to teach. I used to be a store manager at a music store
Mhm.
and when I would do my meetings, I would teach them the basic fundamentals of sales. The four fundamentals for me were greet, qualify, pitch, close. So
Right.
how
Yeah.
you how you greet someone, how you qualify them, like basically find out about them, find out what they need, talk to them. Pitch after I know after I've qualified you, I kind of like okay, I take all this room of keyboards and then from what you've told me and I could put you in something that makes sense. Because 6 months or a year down the line, I want you to go, yeah, I got the right thing. That guy hooked me up. Yeah, I got
Right.
you. and then close. And for me, a lot of times the closing or getting them to buy was like, I'd be like, all right, let's do it. Like I'm buying it. All right, let's go. Because
Right.
because sometimes I'm like, dude, this is the one. In my heart, I'm like, this is what you need. This is the one for what you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Now if you're a customer that said, Ed, I want this one, and I know it's like, bro, and it could be the thing that's more expensive, and I could be like, bro, that's not the right thing for you, but but if that's what you want, because I was like, I was like, people would trust me. They're like, I'm like, okay, I'll sell it to you, but I'm telling you that's not what you need. This
Mm-hmm.
is what you need, and this is what's going to make. This is what and I'm guilty of it too. I have the guy that I buy from, when I buy gear. I'm like, I want this, and he's like, Ed, that's not. I'm like, yeah, but it's pretty, it's shiny, and he's like, Ed, I'm like, all right, all right, all right, all right. All right, all right. You're right. And I know it's not right for me because I've been doing this for way too long. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. So if they want to look for a job, go to the Roland website. But then also cut your teeth at a store. Learn about gear. Love selling gear,
Right.
because if you love gear and you love helping the people, then it's not work. It's fun.
Exactly
It's
right.
fun, because there's nothing like the pride I feel when I help someone and I show them something cool and expand their knowledge, and then you see them on TV, or you see them at the gig, or you see them, they're just kicking butt, and you're just like, and I'm a big sap. I'll be like inside like a proud daddy, like go get it, mijo, go get it,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just it's awesome, it's awesome. And then if that someone can get the enjoyment, but then also can support themselves and their family, that's cool, man.
That's how to do it, right?
Yeah, that's how you do it. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And I'm not even talking like, hey, they got to buy the biggest, baddest Phantom there is. Like, no, you can start off with a little keyboard. I start off with little keyboards. You just start
Mm-hmm.
off, even those little ones that some of the guys make fun of because they get snobby. The little, and I won't mention the manufacturers because it's not dogging them, but
Right.
those little $50, $100 keyboards. I'm like, hey, bro, when I used to tour, uh, I would have my big rig, but then I would have my small $50 keyboard. I call it my couch keyboard because it's always near, so I can bang out ideas and
Right.
practice things, and
Mm-hmm.
then I would transfer to the big board. So yeah, and it didn't hurt my legs by having it on the couch. Just be there like chilling,
Just
and
chilling,
you're but
right?
practice chilling and then practicing. Yeah, just always
Mm-hmm.
practicing.
Well,
Yeah, dude.
Mr. Diaz, we definitely like to thank you for giving us your time here with Quetzal Talk and sharing your knowledge of synthesis with us and the System 8 and whatnot. Like I said, I'm a big fan, man. I've always watched your show. I mean, your reviews and your tutorials and I just wanted to talk to you and see if you could give us a little explanation on the System 8, man. And thank you for all your advice you've given us to to our listeners here on if they want to go ahead and do what you do, man.
What thank everybody out there, and thank you for having me on the show. It's my pleasure to be on here and to help out anyone, as I can, and share what I know, which sometimes feels like I don't know nothing.
Oh
But yeah,
man, it's
you
very
just
helpful.
you just yeah, you do your best, and yeah, just bottom line, just do your homework. And I'm not talking about regular school too, but do that.
Right.
But do your homework, prepare, plan. Like one of my old professors told me, and I take it to this day. Plan your work your plan.
There
But
you
you
go.
gotta do, and that's a cute saying, but you gotta do your homework. You
Hmm.
gotta do it. So that way when you're in a live situation on stage or in front of somebody, because some guys are like, man, we never stump you. I'm like, yeah, because I'm always doing this. I just love it. So it's kind of
Right.
like, okay, let's do it. So yeah, just plan your work your plan, and do your homework, and then one overall, just be nice, be a
Right.
nice dude, be
There,
nice.
there you go, people. You guys heard it from the great Ed Diaz himself. Words of wisdom here, so you guys can start and shaping yourselves up, man. you know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Mr. Ed Diaz, like I said, thank you so much, man. We don't want to go ahead and take more of your time. We know you're a busy man out there. And well, one more question, man. One more question. How you holding up
Mhm.
with this whole COVID quarantine thing, man?
You know what? I am holding up great. Unfortunately, my family, my wife's, she lost both her parents,
Oh,
one
to
in
the
November,
COVID?
one in December. No,
Oh,
fortunately,
okay.
it wasn't COVID. It was, to heart issues and
Mhm.
Alzheimer's. But
Mhm.
we're really proud that they didn't, they were elderly. They didn't pass to COVID.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
that's been obviously a tough thing for the family. But, my wife and I, we realize we're in a we realize the situation that we're in. We live in a nice home. I have my gig. I work in my studio doing creating content, and so we're very thankful for that. We're very blessed, and we really think about everybody out there that's struggling. In various ways.
Mhm.
And we just like I'll call some of my friends or I'll just reach out. And then also when we do the Synth Talk show, that came out of me, and then later my partner Scott and then Roland jumped in. That's just a way for us to kind of reach out to our users. And what I found out is our users will watch that show and they've reached out to me and they're like, hey, that show gives me it's a nice distraction from everything that's going out around,
Right. Right.
and so all I tell people is just like, you know what? I'm not going to get political. Just wear your mask. Just be like goes back to my rule. Don't be a dick. Just wear your mask.
Right.
Because either wearing the mask, maybe I'm wrong in wearing the mask, and I'll never get it. But what if I'm wrong by not wearing the mask and someone gets it?
True.
And I
Mhm.
or I pass, and it's just like, or you have it's like just be cool. We got to work together, but everybody out there, reach out to your friends, your family, have that conversation. Bro, sis, how you doing? You good?
Right.
Because we have all these different ways we can communicate, be it, Skype, FaceTime, whatever. There's so many. Uh, just reach out. But and then also know that this too will pass. But once again, what I always say, you got to do your homework. That might be, hey, you got to tighten the belt, or hey, you can't go on that trip that you normally go to. I'm used to traveling.
Right.
I can't travel right now. It's
Mhm.
it's just like, but it's just what we got to do. So I'm holding up fine. I just it gets a little stir crazy, but you know work on music, work on your
Mhm.
art, work on your relationships. Everybody just hang tough. And if you're having trouble out there, man, just get some help who you can,
Right.
uh yeah, that's what you do. Yeah, and it just there's no shame. Just everybody just work together. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
we'll get through it. But everybody has to do the homework. No matter your political views, I ain't gonna get there, but
Right.
everybody's got to do their homework
For
and
sure.
do the stuff, and it's gonna get better.
For
You
sure.
know, it's gotta,
And
but I tell you what, I'm really proud of all, being Texas. I call myself Texican.
was
So
Texican,
I'm a,
right? Yeah.
I'm a Texas Mexican, so
Right.
I'm really proud politically, and I'm not telling you who to vote for, but I'm glad that we had a strong vote. Everyone, just,
Mhm.
just just put that. We got to put that for the kids. Yeah,
Right.
remember everything you do, your kids, the niños, they're the next generation is watching.
Exactly.
So
Mhm.
so just
And
do good. But
how do you
yeah, so
how do you feel about the vaccine? Are you scared of putting it on of getting the vaccine, or are you pretty confident that it's not gonna affect people in
okay.
negative ways?
Well, here's my brother-in-law who works on the front line. He's a nurse anesthetist, and he intubates people, and
Mhm.
he's already taken his second shot. But
Mhm.
then okay. Here's the thing. And on the vaccine, if I don't take it, if I don't if I don't take it, there's a chance I could get sick and I could pass, or I could spread it to someone.
Right.
And I've already had some family get it. I've already had some close friends. Their family has passed from it. So it's
Mhm.
like, okay, cool. I could roll the dice. Now,
Mhm.
if I get the vaccine, I could get a little sick, uh, possibly, but that would pass.
Mhm.
That'll pass. Uh, and just like when we get flu vaccinations, sometimes people get a little sick from it, you know.
Right.
And then also I look at all the smart people who I respect, you know, that have been doing their gig for many years and stuff, and I'm like, nah, man, you know, I'm not scared. If I get a little sick, you know, just a little sick, you know, hey, I'm a strong dude, you know. It's like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
we'll get through it. But this COVID from different people that I know, and being with the synth community, when I hear some, you know, some strong vatos out there that have gotten it, you're like, yeah, that dude's that's a strong boy, and
Right.
they tell you, bro, that's no joke, you know, that's
Mm-hmm.
no joke. And about 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, I got pneumonia from all the travel. It was when the Phantom first came out, the Phantom G,
Right.
and going between cold and hot areas, and then just traveling a ton. And I got pneumonia, and that knocked me out for a couple of weeks. And I got to tell you, people out there that when you can't breathe and you're just like, it's it's
Damn.
it's it's scary. It is scary, dude. And you can't take a whole breath, and you're just you have to sleep sitting up, and that was pneumonia. And then uh, COVID's worse,
Right.
or
Yeah.
and we've all had bad flus, and you're like, and like I said, strong people that have had COVID and survived are like, bro, it's so, just not being able to breathe. It's like, nah. So, and you know what I did though, and what I've been doing, and and I'm not saying this is the cure, but what I've been doing since I'm a horn player, I've started to play my trumpet a little bit,
Right.
and I did this with pneumonia to work my lungs. That pressure of having to blow into an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
I just doing long tones or some scales and stuff. Yeah, I'm just kind of trying to work out my
Your
my
lungs keep them strong.
my keep them strong. But then like today, while we're having this podcast, the groceries just got delivered. Like, shoot,
Oh,
I ain't going nowhere.
hell yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I just tell
nice.
I'm not like I said, I'm not overly afraid, but I'm very respectful. I'm very cautious, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in my opinion, get the vaccine. The life you save might be someone else.
Yeah.
Might be someone else. You might be lucky, and you don't have any effects of COVID, even though you might have it. But you could
Mm-hmm.
take somebody out. Your abuelita, your somebody, a kid.
Yeah.
Shoot, I wouldn't want to live with
That
that.
would
So
suck, huh? Exactly.
that dude, that would be beyond suck. That would be
Right.
like that would, yeah, because even in the neighborhood when I'm driving my truck, if I see kids playing in the street, especially the little young ones, because they're like little wild animals,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I give them a honk, like pop pop,
Right.
and I make sure they look up and they see me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then even when I go past them, I'm like, slow,
Right.
because you know how kids, they'll just poof dart and like, so
Oh,
and the adults, if they're out there, they get what I'm doing. They get, it's not the mean honk. It's like, hey, look over here,
right.
so
Yeah.
same thing, man. I just want everybody to be safe. I want to go back to gigs. I want to go back to restaurants. I want to go back to travel, but we have to do our homework, and it's not just us. I have obviously the synth community is worldwide. So I have
Right.
my different bros and broettes throughout the world, and we talk. Uh, and I see my friends in Japan or my friends in Europe. They're doing their homework. Come
Mm-hmm.
on, come on, dude, let's do our homework and
Yeah.
let's get out of this. That's just my opinion. It's not an opinion of Roland. It's not. It's just
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
you know that's just me. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I want all of you guys and gals. I want everybody to come out of this stronger and like, yeah, man. And those that are having trouble, man, just keep doing your best. Doing your best. It's gonna get better. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hopefully,
Because
this is the beginning of the end, man. Because we're all
hopefully, but
tired.
yeah, well, you know what? I look at it like this, bro. It's just like 2020 was just like, oh crap, what happened? Oh crap. And 2020 is one because we just cut out of the holiday season,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of people didn't do their homework, and unfortunately we're going to see what's going to happen. And the vaccine, yes, the vaccine is out there, but it's going to take a while. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people to vaccinate. There's a lot of people to vaccinate, and there's still a lot of people that that aren't doing what they need to do. So 2021 for me is still it's like even if I got the vaccine next month or whatever, I'm still gonna be social distancing and wearing my mask the entire year.
Right.
It's just what it is. Yeah, it's just yeah. 2021, I don't think we're. It's like okay, we got to fight. We still got a lot of stuff going, and I mean fight the virus. I'm
Right.
not toward anyone,
Not each other.
but not each other. Definitely not each other. And it's like, and I get it. I get it. But
Hmm.
yeah, everybody just wear the mask. And dude, there's some cool masks out there. I saw some. I saw
Yeah,
some.
yeah.
They were like the Japanese demon, and I saw some other cool ones. I'm like, oh, I want that mask. And my wife is my handler. You
Right.
know, she's the one in the life that when I'm quiet, I'm too quiet, and I'm into my iPad and I'm doing stuff. She's like, hey, Cabron, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you quiet? I'm like the kid. What are you doing?
Right. Mr. Ed Diaz, where can we find you in your Synth Talk, man? Where do you have it on YouTube or is it on Spotify or where can people go ahead and see your podcast?
Okay, hey, thank you. You could actually go if you go to YouTube, and if you look up Synth Talk, just Synth Talk, look up Synth Talk. You're gonna find out the whole list of Synth Talk, and also you can go to Roland Media on YouTube, and you can find the Synth Talk series there. So there's we've had a multitude of guests and topics,
Right.
hanging out, just kind of talking fun, and it's just a nice thing that we do. But yeah, Synth Talk. And I think we're going to talk. We're in the process of coming out with the new show for 2021, the new series of shows, and those will probably be back in February. I'm thinking
Mm.
February because currently, right now, we are producing content for the NAM show. So that for
Nice.
CES and the NAM show. So Synth Talk will return probably in February. I think that's what we're thinking.
Right.
And we'll plan. So hey, if any of you users have any ideas for Synth Talk, what you want to see, and maybe we could have one dedicated to the System 8 or any other Roland keyboard, yeah, or
Right.
just any kind of synth music techniques or anything we can help. We're so
Mhm.
happy to do it.
Now,
Yeah.
also, do you know if there's something like in like what's coming next? Because I know the System 8 has been around for quite a while, right? Like 4 or 5 years or something like that. Do you know
Yeah.
if there's like another like a System 9 or something?
System 9. Well, we do have the Jupiter X
Right.
and the Jupiter XM available, and those are both killer machines. As far as what's coming next, I do not have, I do not have, I can't share what's
Mm-hmm.
coming next,
Mm-hmm.
because I like my career, but then also a lot of times I don't know until it happens or just before it happens, and I kind of prefer it that way.
Right.
I kind of, unless I'm tasked tasked to be on the team to work on something, that's cool, but yeah, I'm like right now the Phantom, we're almost at 50 videos on the Phantom, and I have another 50 more to shoot, and then we got more to shoot on the RD88, RD2000, Jupiter X. It's just,
Right.
there's a lot to do.
Exactly.
So, uh, yeah,
Um,
I'm just like, yeah, whatever comes out, I'll support it, and I'll obviously share what I know when it's legal,
right.
when it's official. Yeah,
Cool. Cool.
and it's
Well, well, thank you, Mr. Ideas. Like I said, for going and giving us some of your time here and sharing your wisdom about synthesizers and Roland and all that fun stuff. Is there anything you want to share before we go? Because we're from El Paso and most of our listeners are from here. Is there anything you would like to share with the people of El Paso before we leave, man?
no, just we don't. Thank you guys for listening. We're all Texan. I'm from Houston originally. I'm 100% Texan. Everybody just stay safe out there. Help your neighbor. Be nice to each other. Uh, you know, uh, just help each other. Just help
Exactly.
each other. Sometimes, like my grandfather back in the day in the Rio Grande Valley. A family of he had 10 kids, and he used to make for all the neighborhood kids in the projects. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
El Hardin. Back in the housing projects, they used to. Man, he used to make big old barbecues of chicken, to
Right.
share, and everybody was welcome. So, you know what? Doing that kind of stuff on occasion, help out your neighbor, be nice, share toilet paper. Just be nice, everybody. Work together, and yeah, I just want everybody to be safe, and let's do what we need to do. Do our homework for 2021, and just live long and prosper.
There
Just
you
do our
go.
thing, baby.
There you
Yeah,
go. Well, thank you, Mr. Ed Diaz. Thank you so much. And maybe when we have the whole video podcast going, we could do another one through Skype, or maybe once this COVID ends, we could get you down here, man.
absolutely. Anytime, it's my pleasure to talk or help out any way I can. You guys just let me know, and I'm there.
Cool, cool. Well, thank you, Mr. Diaz, for your time, and happy New Year's, and hope you have a really good 2021, and good luck with all your endeavors, sir.
Thank you, sir, and happy New Year to you guys too. You guys take care. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye bye, sir.